In the beginning, there was a garden, not a myth, not a metaphor, but a reality more real than the ground beneath your feet. And in the center of that garden stood two trees, not just trees, but destinies, not just fruit, but choices that would echo across eternity. One was the tree of life. The other, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You see, it was never just about fruit. It was about trust. It was about surrender. One tree offered life freely given. The other, knowledge taken by force. One was the path of receiving, the other the path of grasping. One called to come and lie, the other whispered to take and die. That moment in Eden, it wasn't a one-time decision. It was the pattern of all decisions. Because those two trees, they're still standing. Maybe not in the soil of Eden, but in the soil of every heart. In every choice you make, they stand before you. Will you live by what is given, or will you take what was never yours to claim? The tree of life says, let go, trust, yield to the one who made you. But the other tree, it says, no, you must know, you must control, you must be like God. It is the voice that said, you shall not surely die. And we've been dying ever since. But listen, listen close. That is not where the story ends. There was another garden and there was another tree. A tree not planted in Eden, but raised up on Calvary. And on that tree, the curse was broken. On that tree, the lie was crushed. On that tree, the way back was opened. So now the choice is yours. Will you continue to eat from the tree that promises knowledge, but delivers only shame? Or will you turn and eat of the tree that gives life, life everlasting? This is not just a story. This is your life, your crossroads, your calling. The garden is not behind you. It is before you. The trees are not far away. They are within reach. And the one who walked in the cool of the day, he is calling your name once again. Choose the tree of life. Choose surrender. Choose trust. Choose the path that leads to the presence of the Almighty. Because when you do, the garden returns, the exile ends, and what was lost is found again. So rise up, stand tall, walk out of the wilderness, and walk back into the garden. The gates are open. The way is clear. The tree of life awaits. In the very first moments of humanity's existence, there was no chaos, no confusion, no wars, no fear. There was only a garden, a place of perfect harmony, a sanctuary of beauty, a piece of divine intimacy. But at the heart of that paradise stood something deeper, something mysterious. Two trees. And these weren't just botanical features of Eden. No, these trees were eternal symbols, cosmic revelations, representing two roads, two destinies, and two kingdoms. One was the tree of life, pulsing with the very breath of God. It didn't just offer nourishment, it offered union. It wasn't merely a plant, it was a portal, a divine connection to the source of all that is good. To eat of it was to live, not just to survive, not just to exist, but to truly live, to overflow with the unbroken presence of God. But then there was the second tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And while it appeared beautiful, enticing, even wise, what it represented was something far more dangerous than forbidden fruit. This was the path of separation. This was the path of self. This tree said, you don't need to trust. You don't need to trust. You don't need to walk with him. You can judge. You can rule. You can be as God. And so the Garden of Eden became more than a setting. It became a stage for the most critical choice in human history. A choice not just for Adam and Eve, but for every soul that would ever walk the earth. The choice between two trees. The choice between two ways of living. The tree of life calls us to a life of surrender. It says you don't need to know everything. Just trust the one who does. It invites us to receive life as a gift, to walk in dependence, in humility, in relationship with the Creator. But the other tree, the tree that led to exile, to death, to brokenness, it calls to our pride. It whispers, you can be your own master. You can write your own truth. You can be your own God. This right here is the foundation of the battle every one of us fights. It's the war between submission and control, between grace and pride, between the spirit and the flesh. The tree of life is the way of peace, but it requires us to die to self. The tree of knowledge appears to give us power, but it separates us from the very one who is power. And we, as the children of Eden, we stand at this crossroad again and again, in every decision, in every temptation, in every moment of fear or desire. Will we grasp or will we receive? Will we take what we think we deserve, or will we bow and trust that he has already given us all we truly need? These are not just ancient symbols. These are living realities. The two trees are still with us. One leads to life, One leads to death. One leads to communion. The other to exile. One brings us back into the arms of God. The other keeps us hiding in the shadows, covering ourselves with leaves, still trying to fix what only grace can restore. So do not be deceived by what appears wise to the eyes. Don't follow the path of pride disguised as enlightenment. For the beginning of wisdom is not knowledge, but reverence. Surrender. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all understanding. And that begins at the foot of the tree of life. Choose the right tree. Choose the path that leads to blessing, to freedom, to restoration, because the two trees still stand before you. And your destiny depends on which one you reach for. Let me know if you'd like the next keynote expanded in a similar W. The choice that was made in the garden was not a distant event confined to ancient history. It was not a one-time decision buried in the dust of Eden and locked away in the pages of sacred text. No, the decision in the garden was a seed, planted in time but growing across the ages. That moment, that bite, that turning away, it was the spark of a fire that still burns through every human heart. What began in Eden never ended. It was only the beginning. The two trees still cast their shadow over every soul. The same voice that whispered to Eve, "Did God really say?" is still whispering in our ears today. It's the same temptation to take, to grasp, to rule, to know apart from God. It follows us, haunts us, pulls at us. Because the garden wasn't just lost in geography, it was lost in the heart. And that same heart must now choose again and again, whether to repeat the sin of Adam or to walk the path of return. You see, the decision in Eden was not about fruit, it was about authority. It was about whose voice would define reality. Would man live by divine instruction, or would he cast off restraint and follow his own way? That's the same question we face every time we're tempted to compromise, to justify, to follow the crowd, to listen to culture over the Creator. The serpent has changed his disguise, but not his strategy. Today, he doesn't come with scales and a hiss. He comes through ideology, through doubt, through the subtle suggestion that you don't need God to define right and wrong. You can define it for yourself. That same rebellion is the spirit of our age. The echo of Eden reverberates in our universities, in our politics, in our screens, in our desires. But here's the mystery. Though humanity fell in a garden, God didn't abandon the garden. In the garden. He left the gate guarded by angels, not as a permanent curse, but as a sign that there would be a return, that one day another decision would be made. Not in a lush paradise, but in a garden of sorrow. And in that second garden, Gethsemane, the second Adam, Yeshua, faced the same test. But this time, the outcome was different. Where Adam said, "Not your will, but mine be done," the Redeemer said, "And not my will, but yours." Where Eve reached out and took, he let himself be taken. Where Adam hid in shame, he bore our shame upon himself. The decision of the first Adam led to exile, but the obedience of the second Adam opened the way back. And yet still, even now, the echoes of the first garden continue, because we must each walk the path of choice. We must each stand before our own trees. Will we live by what seems good to our own eyes? Or will we trust in what God has spoken? Will we reach for independence? Or will we bow and surrender? It's not just a past story. It's your story. It's your Monday morning. It's your scrolling through temptation. It's your relationships, your integrity, your thought life. Every day you step into the echo of Eden, and every day you cast your vote in the battle between the two trees. The same decision made in the first garden lives in every decision you make. And what was lost in that first bite can be redeemed in every choice to follow the voice of the shepherd, not the hiss of the serpent. So hear it clearly. The garden is not gone. It's everywhere. And your decisions today are not small. They are eternal, because the echo still rings. And the gates of Eden still wait to be opened. From the moment the first man and woman were exiled from the garden, the human soul has been wandering, longing, searching. We built cities, towers, empires, and yet deep within, something is missing. There is a haunting memory in the spirit of man, a whisper in the wind, a yearning that we cannot name. It is the cry of Eden lost, the ache for the tree of life. But see, it wasn't just about the garden. It was about what the garden represented, the place where heaven touched earth, the place where heaven touched earth, where man walked in perfect communion with his Creator. But there was no death, no shame, no division. That was the life we were created for. That was the destiny we forfeited. And when Adam and Eve chose the path of self-rule, they weren't just disobeying, they were disconnecting. They severed the lifeline between God and man. And so the gate was closed. The tree of life was sealed off. But even then, the heart of God was not to condemn, but to restore. He didn't abandon the story. He didn't erase the promise. No, he began the greatest rescue mission the world has ever known. And every sacrifice, every prophet, every covenant was a step on the road back to the garden. Because the tree of life wasn't destroyed. It was waiting. And then, at the appointed time, it happened. Another tree was raised, not in Eden. Not in a garden of delight, but on a hill of death. And there, nailed to wood, the second Adam gave his life. But this tree was no ordinary tree. No, it was the mirror image of Eden's first tragedy, now transformed into redemption. The tree of death became the doorway back to life. Do you see it? The cross is the tree of life restored. Where Adam reached out to take, Jesus stretched out his arms to give. Where the first man took forbidden fruit, the Son of Man became the fruit of righteousness, broken for the healing of the nations. Where the sword had once barred the way to Eden, his side was pierced to open the gate once more. And so now the invitation stands clear, uncompromised, eternal. Come back to the garden. Come back to the tree of life. Come not by your works, not by your striving, not by your knowledge, but by grace, by surrender, by faith in the one who made a way where there was no way. This is not religion. This is restoration. This is not ceremony. It is rebirth. The tree is no longer guarded by flaming angels. It is wide open for all who would come. And here's the power of the mystery. When you choose to follow the Messiah, the garden begins again in you. The Spirit of God takes root within. The river of Eden begins to flow through your soul. You become the planting of the Lord, a tree of righteousness. And the fruit you bear becomes healing for others, just as his life became healing for you. But you must choose. Your return is not automatic. You must turn from the lie, from the illusion of control, from the knowledge that puffs up but cannot save. You must lay down the fruit of self and take up the fruit of the cross, because the tree of life is not a myth. It's not a symbol. It's a reality more real than anything you've ever known. And it is waiting. So come. Come out of exile. Come out of the wilderness. Return to the place you were always meant to be. Eat freely, live fully, and walk once again in the cool of the day with the one who formed you from the dust and breathed his spirit into your lungs. The tree of life is calling. So now the garden stands before you once more, not behind you, not beyond you, but here in this very moment. The choice made in Eden was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey. And that journey leads us here, to this place, this hour, this breath. You have heard the whisper of the two trees. One that calls you to trust, to yield, to live. And the other, to take, to know, to rule apart from the giver of life. One is the path of peace. The other is the path of pride. One leads to blessing, the other to burden. One ends in Eden restored, the other in exile prolonged. But listen, O soul, for the gates of Eden are not closed to you. The veil has been torn. The sword has been sheathed. The tree of life, once hidden, now stands in full view. And its fruit is offered freely. Not by your earning, but by his mercy. Not by your power, but by his blood. So I call you now, not to religion, not to ritual, but to return. Return to the garden. Return to the place of your first breath. Return to the one who walked with man before the fall. Return to the tree of life and find that what was lost can still be restored. That what was broken can be made whole. That what was cursed can now be blessed. And when you do, when you lay down the fruit of pride and pick up the fruit of grace, then you will not only walk back into the garden will begin to grow within you. For the tree of life is not just a promise, it is a person, and he is calling your name. So rise, return, and live.